General Sakanashi, distinguished professors from the universities of Kansai, Hokkaido, Osaka, Tokyo, Dr. Raos, kind visitors of today's pavilion, and also to everybody who's watching this live stream at night in Italy, but also as they are queuing outside of the Italian pavilion. On behalf of the TEXTILE team, a very warm welcome. Before we start digging into our project, let us express our deep gratitude to the Expo Committee, to the Italian institutions and organizations who made this possible, who consented this project and our team to present the TEXTILE. Let me introduce the rest of the team before we go on. So please, guys, come to the stage. All of us. Chiharu-chan, dozo. Hideyuki-san, dozo. So, my name is Fabrizio-san, Colonel Fabrizio Beccarisi, in a more formal way. I work at the Italian Ministry of Defense, and I will be the moderator today, and I will try to conduct the event. The team is very variegated, and you will see deeply today how many excellencies in the Italian scenario we have gathered together in order to make this project possible. We have Captain Andrea Legovini, he's a test pilot from the Italian Flight Test Center. We have Lieutenant Colonel Alfredo Pellegrino, pilot of the 15th Wing of the Italian Air Force. Is specialized in search and rescue missions. We'll go more deeply into this concept later on. We have Lieutenant Colonel Antonio Palermo from the National Armaments Directorate, who's the administrative organization within the Ministry of Defense. Ms. Chiara Sebastiani, our logistics manager. Mr. Giuseppe Ballesio, the manufacturer, the man behind the company who actually made the product we are going to show today. Professor Roberto Livoti from Sapienza University. Chiharu-chan, she'll be helping us with the translation in case it is needed. I'm planning to speak very clearly, very slowly, and hopefully by using also the Italian redundant gesturing, I hope that our message will come through. But in case for any questions, we'll be very happy to respond, and Chiharu-chan will help us do that. And last but not least, Hideyuki-san from FLIR Teledyne here in Japan, who helped us working with the thermal camera. Thank you, guys. So today, we're going to take you on a little journey. We need you to use a little bit of imagination in trying to understand what it feels like to be adrift in the sea, maybe in the darkness, maybe in the middle of a storm. You are lost in the sea, in a shipwrecked situation, emergency situation. Any little help, any tiny help would save your life, may contribute to save your life. So that's what the TEXTILE project is based upon. Something which will help the pilots who carry the search and rescue missions to identify the person in distress at sea. Before we dig in more details into the project and into today's event, we would like to share two welcome messages by our bosses. Unfortunately, they could not make it to be today, but they insisted on recording a welcome message. Lieutenant General Giuseppe Lupoli is my boss, so he's the director of the Military Airworthiness Authority in Italy, in the Italian Ministry of Defense. We'll go a little deeper into what that means for, of course, General Sakanashi knows exactly what that means, but we need to explain to everybody. And he really wanted to send this welcome message to all of you, alongside with Rector Antonella Polimeni. She's the rector of the Sapienza University. So please, let's play the first video.
Dear guests and visitors of the Italian pavilion in today's presentation of the Same Textile project, welcome. My name is Giuseppe Lupoli. I am a Lieutenant General of the Italian Air Force and the Italian Ministry of Defense, and I am the Director of the Italian Air Armaments Procurement and Airworthiness Directorate, and the Chief of the Aeronautical Engineering Corps, comprising engineers, physicists, chemists, and specialists in the above branches in aerospace, sub-electronics, civil engineering and transportation, and armament systems. The Italian Ministry of Defense convincingly fosters and sustains, through the directorate I have the privilege to lead and represent, collaboration and projects aimed at implementing the research and the technological development in support of the entire community, civil and military. We are fully committed to this mandate with our skills, resources and capacities, and through the promotion of an innovation-centered approach which benefits from the excellencies and the expertise recognized to the universities and the academic domain. Therefore, the agreement signed between the Ministry of Defense, the Expo Committee, and La Sapienza University offers a unique opportunity to apply and show this commitment through the presentation of an innovative idea under the theme of saving lives and the advertisement of the productive environment established across all involved stakeholders. I regret and I apologize for my absence today. However, I wish you all to enjoy this event and leave the pavilion with a greater awareness of the Italian Ministry of Defense vision in the dual-use domain. Ciao to everybody from Rome.
So now let's play video number 2.
Distinguished civil, political, and academic authorities, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to send my warm greetings to everyone gathered today at TEXTILE Pavilion of Expo 2025 Osaka for the presentation of the project Saving Lives with Smart Textiles. I'm proud to see Sapienza once again at the forefront of such an important international event. The Science Textile project represents a remarkable example of transdisciplinary research. It aims to develop an innovative textile solution to support the recovery of castaways during search and rescue missions, even in low visibility conditions and by untrained personnel. This important initiative is the result of a deep collaboration with the Italian Ministry of Defense and our Department of Basic and Applied Science for Engineering, led by my esteemed colleague, Professor Roberto Lioti. It reflects the union of scientific excellence and ethical responsibility, which are fundamental principles guiding our vision for research and education. A warm greetings also goes to the Japanese academic and institutional representative present today. Collaboration with the Japanese university continues to offer valuable opportunities for mutual growth and exchange. Finally, we wish to express Sapienza's closeness to the Japanese people as we approach the anniversary of the Hiroshima tragedy. It is an event that reminds us the urgent need to scientific diplomacy, cultural understanding, and peaceful cooperation between nations. Science represents a universal language, serving as a bridge between cultures and a vital force for peace. I extend my warmest greetings to all and sincerely thank you for your attention. I wish you every success and a truly meaningful and productive event.
So, after these two warm welcome greetings, it's time to start digging into our project. And I will try to catch your attention with what I think is a very powerful image taken from the Japanese tradition. I think most of you recognize this painting. I even have a copy in my house. I bought it many years ago, before the TEXTILE project, of course. It's a very funny coincidence, in a way. What do we see in this picture, in this painting? We see 3 ships swept by high waves in the middle of a storm. How nice would it be for the occupants of these 3 ships to be assisted in such an emergency situation? See, Italy and Japan share similar orography. We have mountain chains in the middle, but we're mostly surrounded by the sea. I will show you the numbers in the next slide, but in Italy, the military and the civilian institutions, they work shoulder to shoulder, all together. They join forces in order to support the community. Because emergencies at sea, in a country surrounded by the sea, and certainly Japan has a less mild sea condition with respect to the Mediterranean in Italy. We're talking about the Pacific Ocean here. So the high waves in this painting are realistic of what the conditions are. Military and civilian organizations work together in the search and rescue missions. They work daily, on a daily basis, in trying to save human lives. So what is a search and rescue mission? Here we see a helicopter, a typical Italian Air Force helicopter, used for this kind of missions. The helicopter is normally equipped with sensors. This is an infrared sensor, a webcam camera, and you can see here a snapshot of what this camera can see. Over 7,800 people saved since the institution, since the opening up of the 15th wing of the Italian Air Force. Over 7,800 people in doing these kind of missions. Now, let's try to imagine what is the most difficult task in this mission? Is identifying the person in distress. What is this thing? Is it actually somebody lost at sea? Is it a dolphin? Is it just, I don't know, a shipwreck without nobody on top? How can we know? How can we know whether to fly and try to save this person or go this way? So this is the key to understand the basic of our project. How can we help the pilots and the crew who fly daily the search and rescue missions locate, identify, acquire, understand the returns they have on their sensors so they can actually save human lives? So the same textile provides a little bit of help. Why? Because, we go back one slide, because the sensors mostly used by the crew who fly the search and rescue missions, these sensors are working into the infrared band. The infrared has this peculiarity, detects the temperature. So any object with a temperature, so irradiating heat, can be seen on the camera. So try to imagine, at night, you cannot see with your eyes. So how can we see? We need to use the thermal feedback from our bodies. So the same textile tries to exploit these features and to enhance the infrared characteristics of a body so that we can help the pilots. And what is the same textile? Let me show you. We like to call it a special gyoza, because it really looks like a big raviolo. Of course, what is inside that is special. What is inside this gyoza, which will do the mission and will help the pilot in their search and rescue mission. We will see later on what's inside there. With a little bit of a chemistry, we will try to understand the chemical reactions which make this gyoza visible at night. As I said in the beginning of my presentation, the Textile project has been a real enterprise because we have very quickly introduced the team. The team is composed by many people coming from very different backgrounds. It's been an enterprise. It's been a very interesting task because we joined forces and we joined each other's expertise in trying to achieve our goal. You see all the logos here. So what I'm going to do now is to let my colleagues explain very quickly their involvement into the program and what's behind each of these logos. So I give the floor to Lieutenant Colonel Antonio Palermo. The mic is there. Who will describe to you what is the National Armaments Directorate and its tasks. Sí.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Antonio Palermo from the Italian Army. I work for the National Armaments Directorate. With this slide, I would like to give you just a quick overview of the structure of the Italian Minister of Defense. You can see under the Minister of Defense two main branches. On your left, we have the Chief of Defense with the 4 services. I mean the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Carabinieri. Carabinieri are the military police, and they represent the technical operational area of the Minister of Defense. On your right side, you can see the technical, so the other branch is the technical administrative branch, the National Armaments Directorate, and the Secretariat General Defense. The first one, the National Armaments Directorate, with its 4 technical directorates: air, land, naval, and communication directorates, leads the activity of procurement system for all the services. Now we give in more detail in the administrative part of the Minister of Defense. This slide shows you just our governance. So the National Armament Director, Vice Admiral Giacinto Ottaviani, and the Deputy NAD is Dr. Lisa Riccardi. And I would like to illustrate the main tasks of this branch. We have some staff departments. The first one is about industrial policy international relations. The second one is about programs coordination and management. And the third one, where I come from, is technological innovation. But who, let's say, carrying out the activity of procurement for system materials are the 4 technical directorates, one for, let's say, each service. There's a land system, naval, air, and communication and cyber defense systems. So under this work strand, the National Armaments Directorate and the Italian Expo Committee co-signed a memorandum of understanding where each party, within their own expertise and in accordance with their institutional autonomy, decide to, let's say, start activities and projects in cooperation just to show how important is the cooperation for this kind of technological innovation, to have a stage where show the projects starting from its conception at the end, going through each phase until the creation of a prototype to be tested, and in this case to show and to demonstrate the effectiveness of the solution. So this is a very good stage. So the Expo is a very good stage where an idea can be, let's say, exposed in order to allow you to understand each phase of this project. In this case, under the team of saving lives, so we would like to show you this project that has been mentioned before, where industry, the Minister of Defense, and also academy worked all together to have, I think, a very excellent results. So that's from me. I pass back the floor to Colonel Beccarisi.
Thank you, Antonio. So, a memorandum of understanding was signed between the Directorate and the committee, co-signed by Dottoressa Romeo and Dr. Marin. From that MOU descended the operational agreement we had to set to do the job. So, the DAAA was delegated by the Directorate to do the task. What is the Directorate? It's the institution within the Ministry of Defense where, General Sakanashi would know for sure, where we buy air systems. We procure air systems for the entire Ministry of Defense. The selection of these air systems is not random. The systems must be safe, must do the job, must be acquired in a reasonable cost, of course, and their performance must be maintained throughout the full life, from design to the phase-out. In fact, at the DAAA, we manage over 800 different tail numbers of aircraft, and we certify all of them. Actually, my office is in charge of certifying these aircraft so that their performance and their features for safety are maintained. And when we speak about certifying an aircraft, it's not just the full aircraft, but every single system within the aircraft. From the antenna, to the helmet, even to the flight suit. Which is why we were engaged by the Directorate to do the job for this task, for the same textile. The 6th generation aircraft is one of the lines we are working on as DAAA, together with ATLA in Japan, and together with the Royal Air Force, so the British Ministry of Defense. We're developing the 6th generation aircraft, the GCAP. This is just one of the tasks we're following, along with all the others. And because we always deal with cutting-edge technologies, technologies which are yet to be used in the civilian world sometimes, we need to keep ourselves up to speed in critical technological areas. One of them being the advanced materials. So, by merging the flown down requirement by the Directorate to my department to do the job, to do the same textile project, by considering our expertise, so we started looking around the academic world to see which institution could help us conceive the idea, develop, and then test it with the support of the Italian Air Force. So, which is why we signed, Director Lupoli and Professor Livoti signed the operational agreement with which we actually started the job. And so I give the floor to Professor Livoti, who's the next in this long chain which brings from conception of the idea to the production of the same textile. Professor, I give you the floor. Here's the clicker.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm very glad to be here. Let me do Jiko Shokai. Start with the self-introduction. I'm Roberto Livoti, professor in physics, and in the last 2 years, head of Department of Applied Science for Engineering, Basic and Applied Science for Engineering of Sapienza University of Rome. And so I'm very honored to do a brief introduction of our work, our research in Sapienza in this specific project. Sapienza, as you know, is one of the oldest university in Europe. It was founded in 1303 by Pope Boniface VIII. And from 1935 is placed in the center of Roma, very close to the railway station. And it is now the largest university in Europe, with more than 120,000 students. This is old numbers. And more or less 4,000 professors, 4,000 administrative staff, and you can see here from the slide the number of courses, PhD courses, masters, specialization courses, and everything. These are the numbers of Sapienza. Actually, we have also 10 Nobel Prize. And this is the location of Sapienza in Rome, and Sapienza is organized in 11 faculties: the architecture, literature, philosophy, civil and industrial engineering, economics, information engineering, law, mathematics, physics and natural science, medicine, psychology, pharmacy and medicine, political science, and 57 departments, 21 museums, 3 hospitals, 2 schools, advanced studies, aerospace engineering, and 1 botanical garden also, and 1 theater, actually. It's not written here. Sapienza signed more than 700 framework agreements, general agreements, with more than 370 executive protocols and more than 170 international agreements for mobility of students, and in particular with the Japanese academies and universities, we signed more than 35 memorandum of understanding, and I see in the audience many colleagues and friends, Professor Junko Morikawa from Tokyo Institute of Technology, Professor Pezzotti from Kansai Medical University, Professor Oliver Wright from Hokkaido University, Professor Oki from Osaka University. We signed some of these agreements with them, and we are happy you're here. Thank you. And of course, Sapienza signed a great number of extremely productive collaboration with the Italian Ministry of Defense. And this is very, very important to do some applied science for dual use mainly, co-funded by the Ministry of Defense. Coming back to my department, the Department of Basic and Applied Science for Engineering is one of the 6 departments in the engineering faculty. And we are 80 professors and researchers with expertise in chemistry, physics, and mathematics, but applied for many kind of research and development projects. You can see a number of activities. Particularly, we have signed many projects co-funded by the Ministry of Defense, mainly for advanced materials and from quantum optics also, quantum information. And today, the more important, so please focus on optical and thermal invisibility, because in this research line, we activate this research line together in the framework of a project with the Ministry of Defense, with previous projects with FISEDA and SCERMA, and where we take some good results for the new project that is Saint Textile. In the project of Saint Textiles, our expertise was asked in the field of infrared technologies for advanced materials, how to highlight the thermal radiation, the infrared signature of objects in very extreme situation, like in the middle of the sea. And so that's all. Thank you for coming, and enjoy the exhibition, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor. So, Professor Livoti mentioned applied sciences. In order to apply science, so to transform an idea into something real, we need to use an end-to-end activity. We need to ask the operators, after the prototype is manufactured, to test it. So that's why we had to, and thankfully, we engaged with the Italian Air Force, and there's an excellency within the Italian Air Force, which is the Flight Test Center. So I give the floor to Captain Andrea Legovini. He's a test pilot. He worked on the project together with the rest of the team, Lieutenant Alessio Arnaud and Master Sergeant Santo Virgilio. Unfortunately, they could not join us today, but I would like to thank them officially by taking this opportunity. Andrea, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Colonel. Good morning, everyone, and welcome again on behalf of the Reparto Sperimentale di Volo. The next slide will be just a few words to give you a quick understanding of what we do on a daily basis as a unit. So what we call in Italian Reparto Sperimentale di Volo is the Italian Air Force Flight Test Center. It's the only Ministry of Defense unit that carries on a daily basis all the flight and ground testing for aircraft, materials, prototypes, software. It's the only research and development unit within the MOD as well. A few historical notes that are pretty interesting on the logo we proudly wear on our uniform. So as you can see, we go back to Greek mythology. The Icarus stand in the middle of our logo, showing as a representation of our curiosity towards the unexplored. We wanted to explore and get a good understanding of all the envelope of the air and space. And the 3 stars are there to represent the 3 still standing records that pilots and technicians from the Reparto Sperimentale di Volo achieved in the 1930s as a symbol, as a reminder for us of our tendency towards excellence in the aerospace sector. These are just a quick resume of the many technical capabilities that we as a unit are able to express, are pretty unique within the Italian and I think also European ministries of defense, starting from prototypes, going in detail to structural and aerodynamics analysis, store integration, and as highlighted by the Colonel Beccaresi, we provide some operational analysis for the new project, of which, of course, the GCAP is one of the highlights for the last month and the recent past. Our mission is divided in a few activities. I will not go into all. I would just like to point you the fourth one, that is reading, promote together with industry and university research and development activities. So this is the mission that we carry on, collaborating in this broad partnership, working for the St. Textile project. We carried on all the flight test activities that you will see in a few minutes summarized in a video. And that is all for me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Andrea. And in order to make the end-to-end testing of the St. Textile operationally valuable, we needed to engage with the people who actually fly the search and rescue missions. So that's why we looked again into the Italian Air Force, into the 15th Wing, and we asked their support in operationally evaluate how good or how bad the idea was. So I give the floor to Lieutenant Colonel Alfredo Pellegrino from the 15th Wing.
Thank you, Colin. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Alfredo Pellegrino from Italian Air Force 50 Wing. I'm an instructor helicopter pilot involved in a search and rescue activity primary. And this is the main mission about our wings and principle. For us, the main operative activity is involved in search and rescue activity during the all condition in day, night, and all weather condition. This is our job and our mission that we operate every day, 24/7, 365 days per year, and also with a newest generation helicopter with onboard system, advanced onboard system. We have the possibility to perform our activity every day. And thanks to a material like that we present today, it's more easier for us to increase the possibility to save the life, because this product allow to increase the visibility, especially during the night activity and in adverse weather condition. How we made our job, we have disseminated from north to south of Italy, all kind of, we have the squadron that provide 24 by day activity and to give the possibility to have the immediate response of in case of necessity on emergency. And this is just a snapshot of the main events that our wing make over than 6,800 human lives saved. Always we say that this is not a job, it's our mission, but first of all is our privilege to save the human lives. Thank you to be here, and thank you for your attention.
So we had the idea, we engaged with the Italian Air Force to have this idea evaluated. Now we needed somebody to make the thing, to physically make the thing. So the project wouldn't have been completed without Ballesio and Proteggi Italia manufacturer, and I give you the floor to explain his expertise, which is the smart textiles. Without those elements, we wouldn't have done the job. Please, Giuseppe. Clicker.
Dear guests, I'm Giuseppe Ballesio, CEO of Proteggi Italia, GP Ballesio line. It is the line of my company. It's an honor for me to be here to share with you an exciting vision of the future, a future woven with innovation and tradition. Yes, because my company is not only a startup, it has its roots in over a century of excellence in the textile sector. Imagine more than 100 years in tradition and knowledge, artisanal mastery, and a very great passion for textile passed down from generation to generation in my family. But what are smart textile exactly? They are clever textile able to feel input and stimuli from the external environment and reacting and managing to adapt the environment thanks to different functionalities embedded in the textile product. They incorporate chemistry, nanotechnology, informatics, engineering, and physics into fabrics, resulting a front-end element between biology and technology. Proteggi Italia now is a leader in Italy in this field. We have developed and deposited many different applications of its technology, and we patent any project. I would like to describe some field where we can use smart textile. Medical field, we have produced a thermoregulating textile with the property of absorbing heating when the temperature exceeds a certain level and releasing heating when the temperature goes down. In aerospace field, we develop an extremely resistant textile able to include helium thanks to an innovative coating system which doesn't require any solvent but only water-based substances. And not only that, we also developed a textile for hydroponic cultivation, meaning farming with an inert textile substrate, making plants grow in a future space trip. We are developing textile for telemedicine, monitoring, and vital parameter, and not only that. Only for you know, every mission that go to ISS, International Space Station, owns a Ballesio textile inside. Proteggi Italia now is the perfect synthesis of this glorious history and brilliant future, even working in cooperation with university and big institutions like DNA, like Italian Air Force. It's a proof that the boldest innovation can arise from deepest tradition. So we merge in our work, tradition, and futures. So as began my speech, we are ready to weave the future, one thread at a time. Well, thank you for your time. Enjoy the visit.
Thank you, Giuseppe. This is some of the projects he was talking about, the applications of the smart textile, the aerospace field, the medical field. And now we are ready to go a little deeper into the project. And to do so, please, professors, forgive me, we need to go back to school a little bit, with a little bit of chemistry from the high school, maybe middle school, I would say. This equation is the basic explanation of our project. Calcium oxides combined with water makes calcium hydroxide, and by doing so, releases heat. This simple equation is the basic of our project. You can see here on this time history, as the time goes, the temperature released by this chemical reaction increases. So we started asking ourselves, how can we exploit this chemical reaction? How can we harness this excess of heat? Can we actually use it in a search and rescue mission, in trying to, as Professor Livotti was mentioning, modulate, shape the infrared signature of an object to make it more visible, especially at night? So the first very difficult task was to find the best way to harness this product, this calcium oxide, to avoid its dispersion and to drive the chemical reaction in a way that actually can be exploited, and so the heat released can be seen by a thermal camera. You see here just an example of the so many attempts Giuseppe Ballesio made in his laboratories by using his smart textiles. And the requirement was to be able to encapsulate the oxide, the calcium oxide, to be able to make the external layers of this gyoza permeable to water, so that the water would penetrate, but the hydroxide would not disperse, so that the heat would be concentrated in that single bag, so that it could be seen. Many attempts, many attempts, but at the end, they came with 3 possible configurations, 3 prototypes. You see here described. These prototypes were then ready for the next stage, which was the engagement with the SBI, with the Sapienza University, because they had the infrared labs, so they could actually tell us how the reaction was going. What were the requirements for these test labs and these 3 samples to be compared to each other? First, we needed to know what was the peak temperature which we could achieve. Then, for how long this chemical reaction would last. Certainly, we don't want the reaction to last just a few seconds, because otherwise, we would not have give the time to the pilots to come and see the person in distress. And third, we needed to know how long before we reach the peak temperature, because that also is very important to see whether the chemical reaction per se is compatible with the timings of a normal search and rescue mission. We cannot imagine that there is a boat at sea, they launch an emergency, and 1 minute later, the helicopter is there. It takes some time. The emergency signal needs to be captured. The crew needs to be alerted. They need to put on all the gear, take the helicopter, fly to the last known direction. It takes 30 minutes, 45 minutes, it depends. Certainly, we don't want the reaction to start and finish too quickly. So these were the 3 key requirements with which we tested these 3 configurations. And here is the time histories of the 3 samples and the heat map of the experiments along the way, of course. As you can see, sample A we may go back to the configuration. So sample A, encapsulated the calcium oxide within cotton discs, the simple cosmetic discs. So sample A seemed more likely to be the one we were looking for because the peak temperature was quite high. Maybe the duration of the reaction was not that long, only 5–10 minutes, but the timing was important because we need to imagine a boat gets into an emergency situation, hits a rock, there's a shipwreck, it's sinking. So these elements activate with water. So the reaction starts at the moment these patches, these gyoza, get contact with water. So we need to imagine the person in distress already into the sea, plunged into the sea, surrounded by water. That's when the reaction starts. We don't want the reaction to be too quick. The helicopter would not make it to be in time here. We need to have the reaction postponed a little bit. So from the lab tests, we decided that probably configuration A would have been the final candidate. Nonetheless, for completeness, we also tested the other two configurations, just to make comparisons. So, before going into test, we completed the same textile configuration. And I will show. So this is the basic element with which basic element is the central one. This is, of course, a sample we used for today's presentation. So the middle one has the calcium oxide and a GPS transmitter. The GPS transmitter activates with water as well. Why we need this? Because when the helicopter takes off, it needs a direction. A FLIR cannot give a steering. A GPS can. So if we have the GPS transmitter within this element transmitting on the same frequency of something we have on the helicopter, then we can start directing our helicopter towards the direction we need to look for. Then we will use the infrared feedback for the final acquisition to make sure that we're not wrong. So, we started by placing one of these gyoza on the regular life jacket and to see what kind of feedback we could get and the acquisition distance. So we placed this life jacket on a mannequin like that one, and we tossed it in on water. And then we flew over, and we started to take some measurements. And we soon realized that because of the size of this life jacket, we will see later, the pixels of the infrared return were too little in number. So the acquisition distance was too close. So useless. Everybody can see if we are like 200 meters away. So we needed to do something different. So that's why we used the raft, which is also part of the normal equipment in any civilian ship. The raft configured with a number of these gyozas. Here you see we actually have used this one during the test activity. And you can see the reaction gone. So that's this white halo is the result of the chemical reaction. The clicker is here. So we completed the item configuration. Now it was the turn to configure the helicopter. Why? I said before, because we had, first of all, a GPS transmitter which was not already compatible with the systems, the avionic systems, already embedded on the helicopter. We needed to install an additional antenna. Adding one antenna on a military aircraft is a huge task, even a tiny antenna like that one. Why? Because of the electromagnetic interference between that antenna and the rest of the antennas on the helicopter. On every military aircraft, we have radars, radios, all kinds of avionics, all kinds of transmitters. We needed to know whether this antenna would actually work in the helicopter environment, whether it would not get adverse interference from the rest of the equipment. And we also needed to use a tablet with the software able to decipher the signal coming from that transmitter to that antenna to the helicopter. Even adding a tablet on a helicopter is not an easy task, because the tablet must have specific features in terms of electromagnetic compatibility, again, and the human-machine interface, the way it is used, because it must not interfere with the normal flying activity. Otherwise, it gets too difficult, and we do not achieve the goal. So that's where the Reparto Sperimentale Volo came into place, to do this preliminary testing, to make sure that the experimental configuration of this helicopter was fit and safe for the mission. This picture shows the rest of the configuration of the helicopter. I mentioned already the FLIR, so the infrared camera. What completes the configuration is what you see on the right side, on this mannequin. We tried to reproduce the typical outfit of the crew flying the search and rescue missions. One of the key elements, apart from the flight suit, the boots, and the life jacket, is the helmet and these ones, the visors, the MVG visors, the goggles, which make images at nighttime visible. Is that green halo we sometimes see in the movies. People wearing the goggles, able to use the little bit of light which is in the background, so we can see. The NVG work in a different frequency with respect to the FLIR. So the two systems work together in support of the task to identify the person in distress at sea. So, with the helicopter configured, the test items configured, what we needed to do is to do the test. We actually tossed the rafts at sea, first daytime, then nighttime. We built up, of course, in the difficulty of the mission. We tested all the three types of configurations to make sure that the conditions in the laboratory could actually be replicated in a real situation when we actually toss the raft into the sea. And what we did was to measure two parameters. At which distance we were able to initially acquire the GPS, and at which distance and altitude we were able to actually see the infrared return from the same textile, from the patch, from the gyoza. And here you can see some of the results. The slide shows the elapsed time from the beginning of the test, when actually the raft was tossed into the water, so the chemical reaction was activated. So after 10 minutes, the type A configuration was visible this way. After 20 minutes, a little more visible, because, of course, the reaction was spreading across all the patches. Here, on this table, you can see the acquisition distance and the altitude. What can we gather from this slide? First of all, as I anticipated, the first test, the TP1, which was carried daytime, but only with the chemical reaction, without using the GPS redundancy, was not really successful for our task. I mean, yes, we were able to identify the target at sea, but at which distance? 0.3 nautical miles, 500 meters. 500 meters is too late. We don't really help the pilot that way. So that's why we decided to change configuration and to use the full raft and to use the GPS redundancy. And as you can see, there was a learning curve, an improving performance from the beginning to the last test run, where the detection altitude was 400 meters, and it's important that these missions are flown at a reasonable high altitude, because this way we can sweep a larger area with our sensors. And also the distance, as you can see, it was considerably increasing as we were learning how to best exploit the products. 1.4 nautical miles, 2.6 kilometers on ground range is a good distance, actually. And now, we're going to show you a video summarizing in an imagery mechanism what I actually said so far. One important element I would like to highlight. In the video, you will see many times this kind of figure. This is the feedback display from the FLIR, from one of the sensors installed on the helicopter. I just highlighted 3-4 elements you can read on that display. Which sensor were we using? Optical, EO means electro-optical, or IR, which means we are in the infrared. And you will see also the color of the picture changing. This is more electro-optical. It's like looking with your own eyes. On the bottom left, you will see the helicopter heading, so the direction of the helicopter, and its altitude, so 647 feet. On the right side of the picture, you will see the target, the boat in distress, coordinates, and the altitude of the shipwreck. Of course, it's at sea, so we expect all the time to see 0 feet, and the distance. Okay, having said that, please, let's launch the third video. Thank you. So, what could we deduct from the tests we carried? Certainly, one patch is not enough. So one patch installed on the life jacket is not enough. We should be working on configurations like the raft with a type A internal configuration. Certainly, the use of the GPS transmitter embedded into the fabric helps for the initial acquisition, so helps steering the helicopter into the right direction. Still, the acquisition range, the final one, we saw that it was improving. There are certainly elements which can be further explored. Driving the chemical reaction into slightly different infrared bands is one of them. Stabilizing even more the characteristics in terms of temperature, in terms of chemical reaction duration. But we were quite satisfied that we could gather good elements, good basis on which to continue our development. And now, we're going to show a little bit how the Zen textile worked. Today, we're trying to reproduce a little bit a shipwrecked condition. Please don't be afraid. It's just a simulated condition. But this light demonstration is just a sample of what we did in the past 5 months. So, first of all, I will ask Captain Legovini and Lieutenant Colonel Pellegrino to help the setup, and also Hideyuki-san, please, to the flare. So, before we start, I show you what we're going to use. We're going to use the GPS return activated by contact with water. We're going to show the infrared return. Here we're just reproducing a lab test. It's not the real end-to-end condition we flew with the flight test center a few weeks ago. Which is why I asked you in the beginning, we need a little bit of your imagination in trying to figure how it feels like. So, on my count of 3, 3, 2, 1, lights off. Lights off completely. So, wait. So we are at the sea now. We're using a civilian boat. We're taking our tour around Osaka Bay. And then there's a storm coming, and it gets louder. And it gets louder. And we inadvertently hit a rock. Our boat is gone. The boat is gone. People are now at sea. People are at sea. The commander of the boat made it to launch his last emergency signal with the last known position before hitting the rock, before sinking with his boat. So the alert chain was activated by that emergency signal. The crew was alerted. And as I speak, they are getting ready. They are getting ready with their uniform, with their gear, with their helmet. The helicopter is getting ready. They are taking off. Where do they go first? To the last known position of the ship. But Japan is surrounded by not just the Mediterranean. We're talking about the ocean. We're talking about Pacific. People at sea into the ocean will be certainly pushed by the currents, by the streams. So, by the time the helicopter gets near the last known position of the boat, the people are not there anymore. They are not there. They are somewhere else. But fortunately, okay, in the unfortunate situation of this shipwreck condition, fortunately, the raft they are hanging on is equipped with a sand textile. And so, the helicopter crew starts seeing the feedback from the GPS. Let's see the GPS. The GPS transmitter is activated. It comes from the transmitter, which is inside the sand textile. So they start steering towards this position, which is not the ship position. It's actually the physical person position. So now they can fly in that direction. And as they get closer to the GPS position, then the chemical reaction has started. So let's see what's happening to the infrared. The temperature is rising because the chemical reaction is working. Of course, the quantity we have used for this experiment of calcium oxide is small. We didn't want to smuggle too much of white powder across the ocean to Japan. The chemical reaction is slowly now decaying. So, the crew was able to locate the shipwreck at a reasonable distance. We saw the measures earlier. 2.5 kilometers could actually finally detect the infrared return. And people can actually be saved. Back to the presentation. So that's what we saw. We, in a very, very tiny way, we tried to simulate the chain of events from the emergency call to the final identification of the person in distress. And so, let's go to the conclusions of today's event. In terms of the exploitation of each other's capabilities, peculiarities, and excellencies in collating all these features together into a team. The enterprise of the TEXTILE project is a complete success because we started from an idea, from basic science. We started to understand how to drive the design by adding operational elements to see whether it works, how it works, whether it could be improved. And certainly, it can be improved. There are elements which still need to be further exploited. But this is normal in every experimental activities. This is in the spirit of every experimental activities. But this was a unique opportunity to merge together academic world, experimental world, and Italian manufacturing. This concludes my presentation. Special thanks to so many people. Probably this list does include everyone who actually participated with so much effort and so much commitment to the project. Dottoressa Romeo and Dottoressa Riccardi at the DNA, who signed the Memorandum of Understanding together with the Commissario Generale, Dr. Marin, who actually insisted in our participation to the Expo, in presenting something to the Expo, in collaboration with the university. The Italian military attaché, and I thank Lieutenant Colonel Cirinei for representing the military attaché. Without their very precious coordination, we wouldn't have been able to ship most of this military material. The Italian Air Force and the logistic command of the Italian Air Force, who actually arranged the shipment. Professor Giuseppe Pezzotti, your role was key because we were unsure about how to ship the calcium oxides, and thank you very much for your help. We made it to have a backup plan, otherwise we would have been a little lost at some point. Thank you very much. Colonel Giovanni Ochinegro and Umberto Castronovo, they work at the DNA. They coordinated the high-level activity and the PI part of the activity. FLIR Teledyne, Hideyuki-san, thank you very much for your help and for running the FLIR for us. And Mr. Ryuichi Sakamoto and Tetsuhiro Maruyama for their really, really friendly support. Thank you all. And that will conclude my presentation, but we would be very happy, and I please ask the team to come back on stage. Thank you very much for your attention. So if anybody has any question, we can give him the mic. Okay.
Hello. You mentioned that during your activity, your research activity, three main parameters, peak temperature, duration, and frequency. Based on your experience, your accumulated experience, which one is the most crucial?
Yeah, I will also ask Lieutenant Colonel Pellegrini to assist me on this question. I think the frequency is key because in the helicopter we use many sensors, and not all of them react on the 3 to 5 micron but we also have NVGs. We have sensors working in the near infrared. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if we can modulate the infrared return into those frequencies as well, then we'll be able to be redundant in the signal, and that will help even more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a very interesting talk. So, in 1922, where I'm from, Hokkaido, a small boat with 26 people sank in winter, and they all died, unfortunately. And I was wondering if they had had a life jacket with a chemical reaction that kept them warm in the water, they might have all lived, because the helicopter came about 3 hours late, and you cannot survive in near 0-degree water for 3 hours. So can you make a life jacket that has a chemical reaction to induce a heater for 10 hours, for example, in combination with this invention? This is my question. Maybe anybody can answer.
It's a great question, and I let Giuseppe answer, because I believe it's already within its portfolio to have this kind of smart textile absorbing and releasing heat.
Yes, thank you for the question. This is one of our goal to continue in the study of this kind of smart textile. Yes, now we have to regulate the curve of the temperature and to stimulate the releasing of the heating from about 1 hour, 2 hours. And we hope to continue in the future this study. So to provide it, to have life jacket in boat with this, sure in the North Sea, where the temperature in water are very, very low.
ありがとうございました。日本語で活かしてます。Thank you for everything. ファブリッツィオさんたちと仲いいんでいろいろ知ってるんですけれども、今回のこのライフ、セントテクスタイル、どのくらい今現状ですね、ミリタリーユース、多分レスキューの人しか使わないと思うんですけども、いずれ商業的民間の方も使える方になるのかなと思いまして、でその際一般仕様になるときはどのくらいのコストになるのかなと思いまして、ちょっと質問させていただきます。
So like he's simply asking, like, for now you guys are only using for the military situation, but if you're using it for the public, like if you guys started selling for the public, how much does it going to be the cost?
Oh, the cost. Well, Giuseppe, you are the manufacturer. Please get the mic.
At the moment, we study this product, and we are not able to define really a cost. Now we have the study cost, and we have to improve, and we have to, after the prototypation of the final product, we can define a cost. But at the moment, we are not able to say and to tell you really a certain cost.
Well,
So
but an order of magnitude perhaps can be...
We have to know what are the quality that our life jacket must have, and after that, we can define a cost. Yes, sure, it will be for a certain number of boats or other things, so it can be a cost good for the market.
So I would like just to say that, in my opinion, any cost is too high when it comes to civil lives. So this is just my thought.
日本もイタリアと一緒で非常に海難事故、海に囲まれているところです非常に多いですので、日本の漁船ですとかそのコマーシャル船ってなんていうかな、旅客船とかそういうところに置いとくと、なんか日本でも役立つんじゃないかなと思いまして質問させていただきました。ありがとうございます。
So like I don't have to explain that in Japanese? 日本語訳はしなくて大丈夫そうですか？はい。Okay. So like he just said he had that question is because he wanted to like ask it because in Japan and then of course we get lots of like sea accident in the ocean, like of course a natural disaster as well. So like it might be better to just we can maybe sell it in here in the future possibility.
Yeah, good point. Thank you. Any more questions? So thank you very much, and allow me to simulate a round of applause to my team, and thank you for their help. So the event is over. I kindly invite our guests, our distinguishable guests, to follow me. And for the rest of the visitors, you are free to wander around now. Part of the team will stay in the room to provide some further explanations. Chiharu-chan will assist with the Japanese in case. Thank you all for being here today. Thank to everyone connected and everyone standing under the heat of Osaka weather, queuing to enter the Italian pavilion. Thank you.